because we can get to this in the Fast Five at 5-ish. But let me get this straight moment that is going to be coming in the Fast Five at 5-ish. If you've seen Fast Lane Ed Lane on the socials, you'll know what I am referencing. It is that type of, wait, let me get this straight, that has just transpired in the last 24 hours. And we are not referencing the big story locally, which is the direction of Virginia Tech athletics, which has James Franklin's imprints written all over this. From the fact that the head coach of the Virginia Tech Hokies was sitting front row, getting his Mark Goodfellow on, to all my Memphians who get that reference. He was getting his Mark Goodfellow on, sitting front row at the press conference. And then James Franklin even spoke after the press conference. And in reality, if you're Virginia Tech, you should want somebody who understands that there are a couple of keys to taking this job and it being successful. One of which is alignment across the board, which has been preached, even though people have been skeptical of this because Virginia Tech is about to have a new president. They just named Brian White the new athletic director, and the head of the board of rectors, John Rakovich, was just recently dismissed. But in spite of all that, Brian White still sees alignment.
The alignment President Sands mentioned is huge. You see it from the outside. It's obvious. I think from Hokie Ventures to Invest to Win to the recent donations to bringing in Coach Franklin, like that alignment, that takes institutional alignment. And that to me is something that I need to have success. Anybody needs to have the success in an athletic director role. So that is really exciting to me as well, and a huge draw.
So how in the world could there be this much alignment when the president who hired James Franklin is gone? When the rector to the Board of Visitors, who was part of this process, John Rakovich, just got removed by Governor Abigail Spanberger. For political thoughts on that, check out the Virginia's Talk Station app, 100.9 FM, or on the VTRN Sports app. Tap that top left corner option for other stations, and you'll get a load of this. How is there still alignment when you also have Brian White as the new AD replacing the other athletic director, Whit Babcock, who was part of this hiring process? Well, let's see. What's all part of this as well? You guessed it, James Franklin, and the ability to work with him.
The other thing that I think is really, really exciting for me is the opportunity to work with Coach Franklin. I think Coach Franklin's, an elite, one of the very best coaches in the country. To me, that he's going to win a national championship at Virginia Tech, and I want to be a part of it, and I want to help him do it. And that fires me up.
Okay, he's going to win a national championship. To those of us on the outside, we might be going, might be a little much considering they've only played for one and they didn't win it. And they had the greatest player in school history, arguably. You could say Bruce Smith, but the other one in that game was Michael Vick. But the reality is you're trying to sell energy, passion, and vision, which are all part of, wait for it, James Franklin, who didn't necessarily have every level of say in the athletic director hiring, but it's clear he had his stamp on this particular move for a number of different reasons. And look, you can talk about that being something that is emphasized heavily. You can say James Franklin had his fingerprints on this decision in a way that no other coach of any sport at Virginia Tech did. Two things are true. You're right, and it's the right call. You're right because James Franklin clearly was there in front and center, whereas Brian White's planning to meet or was planning to meet with all of the other coaches after that introductory press conference. But the other reality is understanding the dynamics of where Virginia Tech is. Trey and I have talked about this often here on the Virginia Talk Radio Network. The part of the dynamics right now for Virginia Tech is you've got to get football going in the right direction because that is the carrier for the rest of their athletic department. And if you can get that moving in the right direction, you position yourself as an attractive commodity for a potential super league, at which point everything else should fall into place. And the reality is, yes, this has a James Franklin hire, but if you haven't noticed anything about James Franklin, this guy is very, we'll just say, you could call him obsessive, or you could at least say he has a high level of attention to detail. Everybody who's ever worked at the Virginia Talk Radio Network is squirming hearing those words coming out of my mouth. But it's true. James Franklin, here was he documenting yesterday how he and his family altered their vacation, but in reality, this is a 24/7 type industry in a way that it did not used to be. Because there was already a lot of team activity going on around Virginia Tech football in the athletic department while this search was going on.
used to be this time of year in the summer was pretty, I don't know if I'd necessarily say relaxed, but a little bit different of a time of years in June. But now with official visits for football, with our own guys here training and taking classes, 7-on-7 camps, traditional high school prospect camps, there's a lot going on.
There's already a lot going on. It's treated like a regular business. This is not like traditional academia where you take time off. Sure, guys may be enrolled in summer school. In fact, if you're a student athlete, and I kind of cringe using that term because some of these guys, you wonder if the student part is emphasized given the volume of times they transfer. Although historically, James Franklin's actually had pretty strong retention with his programs. Just recruit at a high level, develop, keep them around, and they'll get some transfers. Not as little as Clemson, but not as many as other big programs. But you're running this like more of a business operation. In the business world, as we noted yesterday in the fast lane, because
and guess what? We keep receipts.
there's not sabbaticals or time off to a high degree. But James Franklin, in spite of that, again, I give him credit. He's owning the fact that he's actively involved in this athletic director search that resulted in Brian White moving from FAU to Virginia Tech by the fact that he altered his vacation schedule.
We started vacation on Sunday. Obviously, the process changed, and we had interviews Sunday and Monday. So my family's on vacation. Me and Lynn are going to leave right from here to start vacation. At least myself and my family are. The coaches, I know on Sunday, right when camp ended, they were taking off. It was like a NASCAR race, flying out of the parking lot to get out of here for a couple of weeks. But it was challenging. But I think the most important thing is these hires are critical. And we're at a time right now in our university where we have really important leadership positions that need to be filled and are really going to set the tone for everything else. So this is a partnership for myself and the rest of the coaches and a critical piece. So when that happens, you drop everything and give it the attention and the respect that it deserves.
Drop everything and give it the attention and respect it deserves. Capping off what James Franklin mentioned. And I love the NASCAR race reference. Nobody laughed. I'm curious if James Franklin, being as attentive as he is, was a little disappointed in that at the press conference yesterday. Didn't get a chance to ask Andy Bitter that specific question when we spoke with him. But Fastlane, Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts, if you missed it, because
And guess what? We keep receipts.
right there. But altering vacation schedules, giving it the attention it needs. In other words, I think it's important to have an influence in who the next athletic director is. I am going to put my stamp on it. And I believe, and this is all speaking as James Franklin, that to have a successful department, I need to have my say in it. Does it sound, again, excessive or at least overly OCD, overly control-oriented? I think it does. Is that good for Virginia Tech? Yes. Is it what they've needed in terms of direction, attention to detail, and a level of urgency within their football program? Absolutely. And Brian White being around taking this, I think, might represent, again, a different model where you're not looking at athletic directors who were there for 10, 15, 20 years. You're looking at somebody who may be there closer to 5 to 10 years because the amount of work that is going to be required to keep upward trajectory momentum going for Virginia Tech fundraising. And it already has experienced that with some substantial donations over the last year, including the recent $75 million donation a month or so ago. If you're going to keep all that going and deal with James Franklin, who admitted you're going to have to deal with him a lot, it's probably going to be a quicker burnout. And James Franklin has a reputation for that. But it also is a reality that if you understand, it means you come in, you're well compensated, you get the job done, you probably burn out, but you have a chance to reset with a nice little financial cushion for whenever that time comes. Because James Franklin having his fingers on this is not shocking. James Franklin wanting someone who can handle his admittedly intense demands is a good thing.
What I tried to do to help from my perspective is, reach out to people that I know that have worked with these people, because the reality is a lot of people can do a great job in an interview setting for an hour or 2 hours. But as coaches, we're going to be working with this man for 14, 15, 16 hours a day for the next however many years. And I wanted to make sure that we could talk to people that have already done that.
If you're Virginia Tech, that's what you need. That level of attentiveness and, wait for it, attention to detail. Meanwhile, speaking of Virginia Tech, attention to detail, is it an omen this might be coming for football scheduling? Because it happened in basketball? What do we mean? Find out right now to kick off.
It's time for Fast Five at Five-ish. Five-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kinda ish. Let's start with number 5.
If I'm a Virginia Tech fan, I am hoping, but not holding my breath, that this is an omen you might get more of these. Virginia Tech men's basketball and West Virginia have announced the beginning of a new 3-year series that will feature a date in Morgantown this December 5th, 2026, a return trip to Blacksburg in 2027, and then a neutral site date in Charleston, West Virginia. Got to be clear about that. In 2028. Am I holding my breath that Virginia Tech's going to get West Virginia on the schedule regularly? No, because of 9 conference games in the ACC. Notre Dame a couple of years being the 10th, and then likely one Group of 5 and one AA school or FCS school being the 12th for Virginia Tech. In non-Notre Dame years, there is the possibility it might happen if schedules could align correctly, and that would be a positive for Virginia Tech. But in the short term, it's not likely you're going to quite get to this particular point. But in basketball, it's at least the start, and it shows the departments are collaborating. We say this a lot with Liberty, showing you can collaborate well with other schools, even if you are rivals, is a good thing. This is the latest example of that. Speaking of scheduling.
Number 4.
Scheduling. Oh, thank you to the scheduling folks out there for heeding what we have said in the fast lane. Virginia's date against North Carolina State to kick off this upcoming season is going to remain week 0. I get it. It might be really hot in Charlottesville at 3:30 p.m. on Saturday, August 29th when the game kicks off. But it's week 0. There's not a lot of other competition. You have a Go ACC doubleheader leading into that with North Carolina and TCU playing over in Ireland to kick off the day. And I think Stanford might be in action later that evening in a storied, esteemed ACC program. I like this. I like it in week 0. I will reiterate why this is a good thing to have NC State at Virginia in week 0, Saturday, August 29th, even if it's hot, humid, and potentially storm impacted, because it's unclaimed real estate. And if it's a spot where you can get fans not only at the game, but also a spot where you can get more eyeballs on it with less competition, when the ACC is divvying up their media rights performance revenue because you have higher TV ratings, your state and Virginia, you have a better chance to cash in on that than you would in any other matchup during the season. Speaking of Virginia and NC State, they have something else in common in
Number 3.
a shout out to a friend of ours, Ryan Stone, who's from down in the Martinsville, Danville, Southside area. But he put this tweet out the other day, and it's very interesting. With Penn State and now on Tuesday, NC State backing out of games at VCU and paying money to not play at VCU. Virginia was also in that category. It speaks to how challenging it is for mid-majors to get Power 5 programs on their schedule in basketball. Teams like NC State joining Penn State and Virginia are literally paying money to not play VCU despite prior scheduling agreements. That is the reality of where we sit in this day and age. And that is why it is something that you should not be surprised at all to see. I hate it. I like people scheduling more ambitiously and aggressively. Unfortunately, we're not likely to see that. Meanwhile,
Number 2.
one other nugget on Linda Cohn retiring from SportsCenter, which is going to happen this Friday, tomorrow, with it being her last day. There are 2 other things that we mentioned. One, it's worth commemorating her as a trailblazer for women in sports and women in sports media. And I don't think we can say that enough. But it's also a couple of things worth noting. Consumption habits of highlights have shifted. So therefore, it's almost impossible to make a sports highlight show the focal point the way that SportsCenter was must-see TV back in the day, when you had the 6 o'clock SportsCenter to give you the update on everything that happened during the day. You had the 11 o'clock SportsCenter after games took place and after baseball tonight. I know I'm dating myself. And then you have the 6 a.m. SportsCenter, which carried throughout the entire morning. It's just a different time. It's also part of the reason why you don't need to be spending as much money on that talent and as much money on that talent who can develop their personalities in that manner. Sure, you've got a Mike Greenberg who appears there ever so often. Scott Van Pelt, who has a sports center based around him. But that is the exception, not the norm. And the reality that for something like Sports Center, it's taking more of the Learfield IMG radio model in college sports, where gone are the days of a lot of bombastic pro school personalities in media. I think Alan York at Liberty, and he does a great job, but he's an exception to that. So is Bill Roth, Trey's professor Bill Roth, whom you'll hear in Virginia Tech football this coming fall on the VTRN Sports app. They're more the exception. But the Larry Munson of the world at Georgia or Tennessee or LSU or others where the voices were known, not anymore. It's same thing with SportsCenter. You don't want the personality to be too big because the role doesn't justify that type of financial investment. Meanwhile,
Number one.
let me get this straight. Let me get this straight is a phrase that I often bring up for my kids in the house. And it generally does not mean it's a favorable situation for them. Now we have to do that with Terry Arnold. The cornerback, maybe soon to be former cornerback of the Detroit Lions. Let me get this straight. Terry Arnold was arrested yesterday in conjunction with a robbery and kidnapping in Tampa, Florida last February. Details. Arnold is facing multiple felony charges stemming from an alleged attempt to lure 3 people into an apartment where 2 women would lure them in. Then they would have, allegedly, a group text communicating to Arnold and others that a robbery was in progress. Like, this is not a robbery which takes place over like 5 to 10 minutes and the conspirators are out of there. This is a completely different deal. And Arnold is facing multiple charges because of an alleged attempt to lure 3 people into an apartment as part of a retaliation scheme for a previous alleged robbery at Terry and Arnold's rental home in Largo, Florida. Police have already arrested 6 other people in the ongoing investigation. If convicted, Arnold could face life in prison. Let me get this straight. Terry and Arnold went to Alabama, which may or may not have been known for NIL before NIL under Nick Saban and others. He went to Alabama in the NIL era where you could get paid. And he was at Alabama when they tried to pay Quinyon Mitchell to leave Toledo and go to Alabama. But Quinyon Mitchell did not do that. And yet, despite that type of pay for play and being in the midst of a 4-year, $14 million rookie contract, it's the principle of the matter. I'm going to retaliate for a prior armed robbery. Yo, I know it stinks to be the victim of an armed robbery. I'm aware in the street culture, snitches get stitches, and you don't send somebody to the cops. Although, ironically, the people who were allegedly held at gunpoint by Terry and Arnold's group went straight to the police. So, obviously, the street code gets thrown out, as it often does, once you're actually up against it. That's the part they don't tell you. So let me get this straight. Terry and Arnold has a 4-year, $14 million contract. Let me get this straight. He has more money in the bank from playing in the NIL era. And he is more focused on getting revenge on an alleged armed robbery and therefore willing to risk his future where he could face up to a life sentence if convicted because he is alleged to be the one who was the ringleader in this. We are facing, allegedly, Aaron Hernandez, O.J. Simpson level of lack of perspective. Let me get this straight. You're more focused on out of principle and the street code than you are your new code, which is protecting a lot of wealth that everyone else would be envious of having. Let me get this straight. That's the decision-making you have. Clearly, Terry and Arnold, not great when it comes to that. When we return in the Fast Lane, on a much brighter note, no show tomorrow in the Fast Lane. Trey's got some personal stuff, so do I. So we're off tomorrow. We'll be back Monday for covering the Commonwealth, which also means we are moving up our Faith Fridays to Thursday in the Fast Lane. And a favorite guest of ours for these type of segments, Liberty Flames softball coach Dr. Dot Richardson. We'll touch on the season, and then we'll touch on her Christian faith-based journey to Liberty, and before then, and over the last year. All of that's still to come here in the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
Don't miss the Make This the Summer Sales event going on now at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Bedford, with rebates and discounts saving you up to $7,000 on new Ram 1500s or save up to $5,500 on new Jeep Grand Cherokees. Shop over 175 pre-owned vehicles priced to sell fast, many with limited warranties. Our Make This the Summer Sales event is on at Magic City Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram, 1750 Independence Boulevard in Bedford. MagicCityBedford.com. See dealer for details. And 6/30/26.
Big transitions feel like big hurdles. That's why Central Virginia Counseling has 2 dynamic 6-week summer groups for rising 6th and 9th graders packed with essential life skills. Each week targets a new skill for success, tools like organization, time management, task initiation, anxiety reduction techniques, and skills for making friends and communicating well. Through peer connection and expert guidance, students will gain tools to feel capable, connected, and ready for day one. Visit us on Timberlake Road or Wigington Road in Lynchburg or at centralvirginiacounseling.com to learn more.
Hi, I'm Al Billingsley, a board member with CASA of Central Virginia. Children who have experienced abuse or neglect often enter foster care feeling scared, confused, and alone. That's where CASA volunteers step in. We stand behind these children to make sure that their voices are heard in court. CASA is looking for caring adults from our community to serve as volunteer advocates. And as a man, I can tell you we're especially in need more men to step up for these kids. If you're ready to make a difference, learn more at cvcasa.org.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real technology so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590, where smart support meets real savings.
At Farmers Bank, community isn't just where we work, it's who we are. For generations, we've proudly supported our neighbors, local businesses, schools, and organizations right here at home. When you bank with Farmers Bank, your money stays local, helping families buy homes, entrepreneurs start businesses, and our towns grow stronger. You're not just an account number here, you're a neighbor, a friend, and part of something bigger. Farmers Bank, your community, your bank, your future.
Big events call for a big impression, so make that big impression. Reserve a private room at Charlie's. You'll comfortably accommodate up to 65 guests in an intimate atmosphere paired with Charlie's signature hospitality. And each guest can select from Charlie's signature items while knowing Charlie's seamless service will be on top of the details, so everyone can enjoy the moment. Celebrate in style at Charlie's. Book your private room today at charlieslynchburg.com. Charlie's, where great food meets great company.
Hey, Hokie fans, the warm weather months are when you really need experts plugged into the Virginia Tech Hokies. You need TechSideline.com. While Tech softball and baseball light up the diamond, TechSideline.com keeps you updated while taking you deep inside the football and basketball off seasons. Get exclusive recruiting scoops, roster breakdowns, and expert analysis that keeps you ahead of the game year-round. Subscribe to TechSideline.com for $12 per month or just $120 per year to stay ahead of the game. TechSideline.com. All Hokies, all the time, period.
Hey, gang, this is Bud Foster, former defensive coordinator for the Virginia Tech Hokies. You're listening to The Fast Lane with Ed Lane and Trey Lyle. Join the chat at Trey Lyle BT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Another, let me get this straight. As we come back into the Fast Lane, that's like the theme of today. And we kind of hinted that on our social media platforms a little bit earlier. One of them, let me get this straight. Terrion Arnold, 4-year, $14 million contract with the Detroit Lions and played in the NIL era in college football, although he went to Alabama, so they did NIL before NIL took place, allegedly, at Alabama. And yet, you arranged an armed robbery, allegedly arranged an armed robbery, to get revenge on people that robbed you previously, so you're more worried about street justice than you are just having a broader overview and realizing it ain't worth it to handle it that way when you are worth as many millions as he is. Let me get this straight. You lack that perspective. Somebody's tried to provide it and you tried to ignore it. You don't have people in your life like family members or quality advisors, which all are realities. But at some point, you've got to have accountability. And now maybe the courts are going to take that into account for him. And even if he gets off, a lot of that money he's earned is going to go toward legal fees, which is not a fun way to be spending money, which is also a reminder from our friends at Trost Law that they don't want to have to see anybody. But if you're on the wrong end of a situation, an accident with the insurance company, or a situation where you have to navigate the complexities of the legal system, they have experience with that. And you can call them at 777-HURT and visit them at trostlaw.com. Also worth noting today in the Fast Lane. This is great. So it's like, where in the world is Brandon Ayuk? It's the latest edition, by the way, of where in the world is Carmen Sandiego. Brandon Ayuk is the former wide receiver for the Arizona State Sun Devils and was a teammate with Jaden Daniels. He is about to be the former wide receiver of the San Francisco 49ers. And he is it in his little head that he is going to act as outlandish as possible to do whatever it takes to get him cut. Which begs the question, do you think this is going to speed things up? Like, I don't think he's playing again for the 49ers. It looks like we've established that reality. But his latest example is a social media post. Aren't they all social media posts? Where he's hopping on social media and pointing to the amount of money that the 49ers have made them. As if all of a sudden, that's going to be the one to change people's minds. Because I mean, I just don't see it. Like, you're not going to strong arm them now in a way that you didn't previously. Brandon Ayuk has now issued a challenge to the 49ers to cut him for a Commander's move. Like, somehow their masculinity, their manhood is being threatened or challenged by Brandon Ayuk. And that's going to be what tips them over. I mean, look, at some point, let's call a spade a spade. The 49ers are waiting to see if somebody, anybody, becomes desperate enough to give them a draft pick for Brandon Ayuk. Do I think it's going to happen? No. Do the Washington Commanders know this? Yes. Do I think we're just in a staring contest and standstill? Absolutely. Look at the Commanders, for example. They drafted Antonio Williams, the wide receiver out of Clemson. They've already got a couple of other viable options. Jalen, the more athletic Lane, as well as Terry McLaurin. They beefed up the tight end position. They're trying to get help on the offensive lines with Josh Conerly and Laramie Tunsil at tackles and a stronger, more fortified interior offensive line to make it possible for Jaden Daniels. Would Brandon Ayuk, if he's locked in and engaged, help the Washington Commanders? No doubt he would. No doubt. But is Brandon Ayuk in a spot where you expect that to actually happen? No. Do I think with every little bit of ancillary activity this guy puts up, you sit there and go, how locked in is this guy? Is this guy really focused on being the best version of himself? Now, don't get me wrong. If he's in good enough shape, you can get into football shape. You can get inculcated into the offense. But the way you're acting is also costing you more money because you're not getting traded, so you're not getting on this current contract. If you go to the Commanders, I would imagine it's going to be more of a minimal base salary with a very heavy incentive, performance-laden contract. That's how I would structure it. And I know the Niners, again, are holding out, dirty four-letter word coming, but holding out hope that changes. But the reality is, I don't foresee that actually happening. So it's a steering contest. And in the meantime, are we at the point now where we're just laughing and ignoring what's transpiring between Brandon Ayuk, his social media accounts, and trying to challenge an outcome that he wants to happen sooner or later, but clearly doesn't have anybody working with him or able to resonate with him to go, take a moment, breathe, exhale. Because if you do, things are going to be okay. And you're going to get this figured out. The reality is a lot of franchises will trade you if you're disgruntled. But when you act this way, it does become a level of precedent setting, to use a different P word, that a lot of franchises always seem to prioritize and make noteworthy for themselves. Meanwhile, we were praying to connect with Dr. Dot Richardson. There's still plenty of time for us to link up with the Liberty Flames softball coach today in the fast lane. Trying to do a Faith Fridays thing here today. I don't know. I always bring this component up when it comes to faith, by the way. Satan sometimes throws challenges in. We had Ed Gomes scheduled a couple of weeks ago, and we got linked up with him immediately after we went off the fast lane, but it didn't happen. And then today, Dr. Dot Richardson, we're having challenges trying to connect with her, even though we had scheduled our chat earlier this week. And there could well be things that popped up, and we absolutely welcome her and want to speak with her when the time gets going. But that's the reality. We try to do these things sometimes, and it pops up, and all of a sudden it gets a little more convoluted than you would want for it normally to get. Meanwhile, we have had a chance to try to get to that. We will hold out a little bit more hope and prayers that we were able to get to that. But in the meantime, we have been overdue for some fan feedback, and there's no show tomorrow. There's covering the Commonwealth on Monday. So we'll get to some of that right now.
Come join the chat or give us a piece of your mind. Trey Lyle VT and Fastlane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, it's time for fan feedback in the Fast Lane.
So we're grateful for all the feedback that ends up coming in. One, we stick on the Liberty Flames, but in the world of football, which we've touched on at moments here in the Fast Lane, Mike has chimed in relative to one of the big free agent signings. And of course, when we think Liberty, you can think of Malik Willis. But Mike had this to say, or a question about Malik Willis and his prospects with the Miami Dolphins in year one, asking what we think of those prospects. Look, I will say this. I don't think the Miami Dolphins are likely to be a playoff team. I just don't see a level of talent that's commensurate where I go, okay, this is likely to happen. I think there are way too many holes on the roster. They just got rid of what's his name? Of Jalen Waddle, the wide receiver, in the offseason. Devin Achane at running back as well. They have been a turnstile with players departing. So I'm not at all surprised that this is where you're looking right now. But I still see enough there where I go, okay, there's still a lot to be proud of for Malik Willis. And if there's one positive to him, it's the ability to, I don't know if outkick your coverage is the right way to phrase it, but I would go in that direction and just say, I'm not surprised that that's a reality and a route that could happen. Because Malik Willis showed in mop-up duty last year the ability to maximize his talent and get the most out of himself in the right system. Now he's with Jeff Hafley at Miami. There's a level of familiarity right there. I think there are too many holes on this roster for them to be a serious contender beyond this. But I think there's enough right there where you sit there and go, okay, you've got something with which to work if you're the NFL and you're the Miami Dolphins. So I think they're the type of team that could go above expectancy. I view them more as a 5 to 8 win team that is competitive in a lot of their losses because Malik Willis will keep them in games. But I do believe over the course of the season, you'll sit there and go, okay, this is a guy that we know what he can do in the right setup, but you also realize this is not likely to go the way that you would want. And inevitably, Miami will realize Malik Willis at $22 million a year is probably a really good guy to have as a bridge quarterback. And maybe best case scenario, he gets you to the Baker Mayfield level of like 33 to 40 million a year, where you're not quite franchise player payment, but you're enough where you can win games with the right supporting cast. And I think for Malik Willis, worst case scenario is it craters on an inferior roster. But I don't see them being as disorganized as the Jets would be. I don't see them being as devoid of talent relative to their division the way that the Arizona Cardinals are. And, of course, Malik Willis's other rumored reported destination. But I think for Malik Willis, you're looking at a guy that in the realistic scenario, you're a 5 to 8 win quarterback. Even with 5 wins, you go, okay, this guy's a viable bridge option at quarterback. We will draft somebody else, but we trust Malik Willis to be around and help this new quarterback that we'd select in the first round, if you're Miami, develop into a quarterback that can be a franchise player, and you trust the maturity of Malik Willis, and you'll pay him handsomely to be that bridge quarterback. Think the way Kirk Cousins is getting, $27 million a year for the Raiders this year when everyone knows it's ultimately Fernando Mendoza's job, but he's getting $27 million a year this year, and it's basically guaranteed that second year of the contract as well, and that's kind of a reward for it. I kind of view Malik Willis in a similar light. And we poke fun of Kirk Cousins a lot here in the Fast Lane. But I will say this, for all the poking fun of Kirk Cousins, I think he does understand what's asked of him from a business sense, and it's clearly communicated. And he has the right cultural mindset to be on board. And look, let's be honest, that guy is as motivated by the business of the NFL as it is winning football games. Like, if it was about winning, he'd take less money because he's not that much of a talent, and he'd allow teams to build a stronger supporting cast around him. But there is no money being left on the table for that in the Kirk Cousins world. He's getting the maximum amount he can in every situation. Doesn't make him any less of a Christ follower and a believer, but it is also something you can reasonably say about Kirk Cousins. I think Malik Willis, a little bit different attitude in terms of that, but I think it'd be similar structure, and a similar goal. And I think the best case scenario for Malik Willis is he gets the Miami Dolphins to 7, 8, 9 wins this year. And I don't think they're making the playoffs this year. I could be proven wrong, but I tend to agree with the sports books that they're not likely to make the playoffs this year. But where I see some upside for a guy like Malik Willis very simply is that he shows enough where you go, wow, he got us to the brink of a playoffs with a skeleton crew roster. He did everything that was asked out of him. Again, I don't think on his best day, Malik Willis is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Probably not even top 15. I just don't. But maybe he flirts with the top 10. Maybe he's a guy where, again, I think this is probably thinking too much. But best case scenario, you put him in more of a Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield. I think Jalen Hurts is beyond this category, having won a Super Bowl MVP, and he could have won a second if they didn't choke it away against the Chiefs a couple of years ago. But best case is you've got a Malik Willis turning into a Baker Mayfield, Jared Goff guy where he'll get paid very well. He's a phenomenal leader. He's mature for the position. He provides a lot of stability, and he can make plays when the supporting cast around him is strong enough. Not gonna carry you alone, but he's a guy that's not going to go Kirk Cousins where he eats so much money you can't build a cast around him. And that would be another positive for the Dolphins in the best case scenario is you got something here. Now let's build everything around him. I think that's where you can reasonably expect things to go with someone like Malik Willis. Meanwhile, when we return to the Fast Lane, we make it to more of your fan feedback. And in the second edition of the Fast Five at Five-ish with some NBA draft observations and some World Cup takeaways as the first set of games, the first of 3 sets of games, is unfolding right now. And if we get with Dr. Di Richardson, fantastic. If not, we'll reschedule that as well. Here in the Fast Lane on the VTRN Sports app, and ask that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports.
Celebrate 250 years of America with massive savings during the Liberty 250 savings event on the Sheeler Motor Mile. Right now, get an additional $250 fuel savings discount on all new and used vehicles. An additional $250 in fuel savings. Shop over 2,000 new and used vehicles in one location, including more than 1,000 quality pre-owned vehicles with most makes and models at the Used Car Superstore. Plus 12 new car brands in Southwest Virginia. Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Toyota, Subaru, Chevrolet, Buick, Mitsubishi, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. Used cars starting at just $59.95. $59.95. And your trade is worth more. Shop local and save with straightforward pricing, exceptional service and selection, certified friendly staff, no games, no gimmicks, and more inventory arriving daily, plus flexible financing options for every budget. We've got the credit. The Sheeler Motor Mile delivers choices. The Liberty 250 savings event on the Sheeler Motor Mile. I-81 exit 118C in Christiansburg. Call 866-SHEELER1. Always open at Sheeler.com.
Example 2009 Chevrolet Impala stock number KA260134B plus tax tag title and $697 processing fee.
The clock is ticking. Time is running out for Virginia citizens to purchase modern sporting rifles and magazines from Big Boys Guns. Beat the July 1st deadline. Right now, the selection is robust at Big Boys Guns. ARs, AKs, and the most popular handguns will soon be banned from sale in the state of Virginia. Don't wait. Visit Big Boys Guns before the inventory is gone and not allowed to return. Shop 24/7 at BigBoysGuns.com and in store on Route 460 in Blue Ridge.
Guests are great, except unwanted guests. At Specialty Exterminating, we know the difference. Hi, I'm Sabrina Kennan with Specialty Exterminating. We help you keep unwanted pests out of your home. Now we can keep those reptiles away. Our new reptile repellent is the perfect add-on for your pest prevention service. It's pet and people safe, so it's perfect for any homeowner, especially pool owners and homes in wooded and rural areas. Call us so we can repel the reptiles. Specialty Exterminating, your pest prevention partner since 1979.
Midday hunger hitting you hard? Swing by Macadoo's for our $8.95 weekday lunch specials. Whether you're craving a classic crunch or something fresh, we've got you covered. Chicken tender basket featuring crispy golden tenders served with fries. The Macadoo's Chef Salad, a healthy, loaded favorite that will hit the spot. Hit back against your lunchtime hunger at Macadoo's with eats that won't break the bank.
Time to share, break that fun. Just to be there the only one. Just to be there at Macadoo's.
We'll see you at the Do's.
Holes for Heroes is back at the 29th Annual Boonesboro Fire and Rescue Benefit Golf Tournament. Your support goes beyond teeing off Monday, July 20th at the Boonesboro Country Club. It's also sponsoring a hole or lunch, because however you support the event, you're actually helping with key services like continuing education and training, building maintenance, plus gear and equipment, including the new fire truck that's currently being built. Start your support now at BoonesboroFireRescue.org. That's BoonesboroFireRescue.org.
Hill City, the Howlers are ready to celebrate America's 250th at City Stadium.
Friday the 3rd, a patriotic cap giveaway presented by Foster Fuels. On Saturday the 4th, celebrate America's 250th with a patriotic rally towel and the only fireworks show in Lynchburg postgame presented by Drain Rangers. And Sunday, a kids' ice cream jersey giveaway before the 2 p.m. start. Get your tickets now at hchowlers.com and howl out loud.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at Trey Lyle VT and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
All right, it's time for Trey to show his knowledge and expertise. Right now, we're going to do a second edition of Because of the World Cup.
It's time for Fast Five at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
So yesterday's World Cup action, this is according to my novice expertise, so this is where you get to make fun of me. Looked like it was unfolding about how it could have been expected. Haiti kept finding a way to even things up against Morocco, but Morocco had so many more chances down in the ATL that it felt like, and it ultimately has proven true, that eventually they would be able to get some separation, and they did with a 4-2 victory over Haiti. But everything else went about the way you would expect. Bosnia knocked off Qatar. Switzerland against Canada, they won in an even match game. Brazil looked a lot better against Scotland, 3-0, and Mexico 3-0 over Czechia, sending them packing. Then, last night, Trey, this is where you can chime in and say I'm wrong, but that's when the upset seemed like it happened. South Africa stunning South Korea with a 1-0 victory.
To importantly finish second in their group, in Group A.
1 win, 1 draw, and 1 loss, which was a rather pleasant surprise. So that's one of the cool things about last night. It leads us into today. There are, by the way, Trey, do you like these groupings of 3 different, so there's 3 different time frames with 2 matches in each of those time frames?
Yeah, it's always been the group plays at the same time. It used to be 4 games a day. When
Last group day.
Yeah, like
2 at a time.
Like the third group match they would always play at the same time because it basically would prevent a team if they're locked, like to go from not locked in to lock in, not playing their important players. Also creates great moments, a la 2010, where Landon Donovan scores in the final seconds against Algeria to win. And one of my most regrettable sports moments of my life is someone who watched that whole game and then changed the channel because he was so mad at the United States men's national team just to flip back to see them celebrating the goal. Anyway,
Trey, can I really irritate the soccer fans for a moment?
Yeah.
Because I'm going to Americanize this because a lot of people may not know this. What we're getting right now, where you got 2 matches at a time, each of the group matches. Right now it's Curacao, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador, Germany. More on that in a moment. Then the next group, Japan, Sweden, Tunisia, Netherlands. Those matches are at 7. And then the big one, of course, for us, more on this in a moment.
Well,
tonight at 10, Paraguay, Australia, and Turkey A in the United States at 10 o'clock. They're booked at the same time. Think week 18 of the NFL season, where games that have similar playoff implications are played either in the 1 or 4 o'clock window. Is that the best explanation you could come up with?
Yeah, that would be a good way to put it. So yeah, I mean, the ironic part is because they added head-to-head as a tiebreaker. Germany, I know you're going to get to the score in a second, but they've already won Group E, like the Americans. They're not playing some of their starters tonight because they're all on yellow cards, and if they didn't have a 12-day break,
we'll get to America in a moment.
Okay, then I will not say that part. But yeah, I just think. I guess the South Africa result was shocking. Canada losing, but I think Switzerland was favored. I saw Canadian media complaining that they have to not now go to Canada. They have to play in Los Angeles. Well, you controlled your own destiny by all you do is win your group and get a result against Switzerland, and you could have done that. So that's on you, buddy boys, because both Mexico and the United States are going to be hosting at home, unlike Canada, who finished second in their group. So, sorry, Canadian.
Meanwhile,
number 4.
In one match taking place at Philadelphia Stadium. By the way, I love on ESPN.com, it lists the actual football stadium name with the sponsor and everything. But the World Cup is calling it Philadelphia Stadium, and Are they calling it New Jersey Stadium because
New York-
it's in New Jersey?
New York, New Jersey Stadium. Yeah, I think the best is in like San Francisco Stadium. Levi's covered its logo, but it covered it in a way where it's clearly the Levi's logo. So, it's even as simple as I don't think they call it Arrowhead Stadium. They call it, even though it's a sponsor, it might still call it Arrowhead Stadium. They call it Kansas City Stadium.
It's Arrowhead Stadium, but the field is sponsored at Arrowhead.
So they still might call it Arrowhead, but like it's not SoFi. It's the Los Angeles Stadium.
Is it Dallas Stadium or is it Texas Stadium once again for the Cowboys?
I think it's Dallas. Might be Texas.
Like I've watched this. I enjoy it. By the way,
it's Dallas because they are also playing in Houston. So I think it's Dallas and Houston.
fair enough. Touche. Meanwhile, what's going on, by the way, in the matches that are taking place today? We're at the end of the second half. Ivory Coast is probably going to knock off Curacao. It's a 2-0 game in Philadelphia at Philadelphia Stadium. Meanwhile, Ecuador, a 2-1 victory against Germany at New Jersey Stadium. That is one that we will get to a little bit later. We're going to try to reschedule Dr. Dot. Send her a message, see if we can reschedule her for next week, next Friday, because I want to make sure we have time. 10 minutes. Look, with some guys, 10 minutes is plenty. With Dr. Dot Richardson, it's nowhere close to enough to be able to link up with her because her insight and wisdom is fantastic. We have had some technical challenges getting linked up. Hey, look, we're doing Faith Fridays. We knew this was going to happen. By the way, quick little detour in the fast lane.
Time to take a detour in the fast lane.
I knew this was going to happen. Like when we're doing a Faith Fridays thing, doing the Lord's work, you know that Satan's coming after it and there's going to be adversity that pops up. It doesn't mean it's fun, but it's something you just sit there and go, yep, probably going to happen. You just plan in your head and prepare for it. Meanwhile,
after Ed's potentially unnecessary detour, let's get back on the road in the fast lane.
Although I would argue that it is not an unnecessary detour. 2 matches going on right now. We are approaching the 90th minute. Ivory Coast 2-0 over Curacao. That's not at all a surprise. A lot of people think Curacao is the worst program or worst team in the World Cup.
The smallest team in the World Cup.
They are. They are about to go their group stage without scoring a goal.
No, that's Cape Verde.
Yes. But Curacao is right down there with it.
Curacao scored a goal. They scored 1 against Germany in a 7-1 loss.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. 1 against Germany. And they're about to give up 9 cumulative goals. They had a 0-0 draw, 7 against Germany, 2 against the Ivory Coast. Meanwhile, Ecuador is beating Germany 2-1, but is that one of those trades that gets kind of the old Week 17, Week 18 asterisk where Germany is in the resting starters match, if you will, because they're not playing everybody a full amount of the match because they've got everything sewn up and advanced on to the knockout rounds? Oh, microphone.
That's a false start, or I don't know, offside, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I think some starters are not playing for Germany in that one.
Awesome. Good to know. Meanwhile, we will pivot off of that into
Number 2.
the United States tonight against Turkey A. Trey, everybody's got excitement. Watch party downtown Lynchburg on the waterfront as well. People will be enjoying it down at the amphitheater this evening, even though it's a 10 o'clock start. Is this one of those where Team USA wins 1-0 because they want to win? They know it's important. It's on U.S. soil, but they're probably going to be, again, think resting starters game like the Eagles often do in Week 18 of the season.
Yeah, I think the biggest example I think you're going to see, because they would have, so as it stands now, their next game will be July 1st. So that's 12 days away. So you don't want to not play important players, like i.e. Christian Pulisic, who would have even longer of a break. He's going to play, I would assume, like 20-ish minutes today. Like something, not a full game, but a little bit of time. So you will see that. As for the rest of the team, the guys who are on yellow cards, who theoretically could get suspended if they get a yellow card this game, they're not going to play. But I think you'll see most of your starters, some others mixed in. I think you want to kind of keep the form going because you do have such a long break in between games.
That makes sense. And that's why it's the old. So if I'm hearing you correctly, Trey, this is you translating soccer into me. Hold on. Can I get my football analogy, American football analogy for you, for all of our listeners out there who don't quite understand soccer like me? Is this kind of the, hey, you've already locked up the bye, You don't want to fully rest them in week 18 and have a 3-week bye. So they play like the first quarter of the first half before you start to pull starters, because ultimately you want to make sure no one gets injured, but you don't want full level rust.
Yeah, and also you think about this. This is not like their normal team. Like you think about week 17, Peyton Manning had 16 games of throwing to those wide receivers or whatever before the playoff game. Like this is, while they've had warm-up games, they've practiced, and they've played years together, but it's not like they've played, compared to their club team. So it's a unique dynamic, especially in a tournament setting. So they could be a little bit more risky on the injury front while you don't want to get hurt, but you could still play them because they're going to play less amount of games.
All right, Trey. Meanwhile, a little bit more of a wild card in
number one.
One of the big storylines this World Cup has been the hydration breaks, which is code for timeouts for sponsors. Am I reading that correctly?
Bing, bing, bing. I mean, yeah. I mean, I get why in some cases that there's the case of breaks because it is summertime in this country and it gets hot. And if it's over 90 plus degrees, I get it, and especially on a field. But when you're indoors in Atlanta or Dallas, why do you need
climate control?
Why would you need a hydration break?
That's a great question. I have
but
no.
Miami, for example, I understand it.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I would say that's a very well put, succinct explanation of what is transpired. Miami, it makes sense. In other places, not so much. So I am fine with it. I don't get the idea that this is likely to carry over to regular soccer competition. I've said this all along, and I know fans can't stand this in NASCAR, and I would imagine soccer fans are even worse. If you're trying to, quote, pay the bills, end quote, by inserting sponsors onto the TV breaks, there are a couple of ways you can do that. One of which is having what we're seeing in the NHL where the rink advertisements are blocked out by a TV version that they sell during the action. Another one, and we saw this in the NBA, particularly in the bubble, which is the logos, I don't know if you call it hieroglyphic, whatever. They're screenshotted onto the court. So if you're at the venue, it's not actually there, but on TV it appears for those. Another way to do it is, and NASCAR fans are going to curse me for this, but I'm okay with it, the split screen concept. Guys down with an injury. We want to get a quick timeout in. I mean, heck, if we can figure out how to do this on Jefferson Forest Cavalier football, then they could be able to do it because they have a split screen. Show the guy down, get a quick little timeout or two in on the side, get those bills paid without actually disrupting the action, and then get back to the flow of things and let the announcers explain what's happening. It should be something that is reasonable and expected from each of them. At me, Fastlane Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if you are a fan of ours, and at an upset point. But I think the big point that we're bringing up with all of this as well, relative to every bit of it here in the fast lane, is, look, I'm not under the delusion that soccer is going to overtake American football. I think soccer aficionados want that to happen. Just like for a period of time, the NBA people, since that when there was negativity toward the NFL with concussions and protests that happened and the way that Donald Trump and the owners interacted and the players and all of the beef that unfolded back during the more contentious 2020 election cycle, that, it's going to happen. It's not going to happen. It just means you've got a chance to raise your profile. I think in the similar spot, the NBA has risen, which is good for the game of basketball. Soccer is rising, which is good for the game of soccer. It doesn't mean it's all of a sudden going to be number one. But I think it now healthily can be mentioned as one of the sports to which Americans will pay attention year round, even though it will not be to the same degree as they do others. And that is still a plus for the sport. The other thing is, I know they have CONCACAF. I know they have the Euros. I'd love to see something like the World Cup or world-style tournaments more frequently. I think nothing galvanizes Americans more than a chance to root on your team. And I know it's a challenge because a lot of these guys play leagues that begin, it basically is the school year. Think of it this way. A lot of these leagues begin at the beginning of September, and they run all the way through the end of May. And summer is a break time for them. But even if you have a couple of these smaller tournaments and make them more publicized during the summer, I think it's great for fans. It gets them engaged. It gets them excited. And that's something where you can go, yes, we're excited. By the way, Trey, looks like he's got an update.
Yeah, we got finals. 2-0, 2-1. Ecuador pulls off probably the biggest upset of the tournament so far. if you want to count Cape Verde going 0-0 against Spain as an upset, which it kind of is, but like in terms of result, this is just as big as South Africa last night beating South Korea. I would argue bigger because it's Germany. So that and I forgot I had a thought and it escaped me.
You had a thought and it escaped you?
We've all been there.
That's painful. I'm sorry to hear that, Trey, but it still is probably a pretty good fight. Or a pretty good thought.
It was something, man. It was something. But anyways, it's time to go home, I guess.
It is. It is time for us to go home in the fast lane. By the way, if you're wondering, we're going to get with Dr. Dot Richardson next Friday. She joined us with about 10 or so minutes to go in the fast lane for those that are wondering. And we're grateful for her attempts to join us. The gist of it with us and her is we need a lot of time to talk with her because she has such great insight. And I mean this in the most complimentary way. There's certain guests, you ask a question, you kind of have an idea that you'll have follow-ups. With Dr. Dot Richardson, you ask a question knowing that she's going to give you 10 follow-ups in her answer because there is such richness to that. So we wanted to honor that, and we want to make sure we get a chance to give her the full amount of time that is available. That will come your way next. Meanwhile, we're off tomorrow in the Fast Lane. We're back Monday for covering the Commonwealth. More soccer or football reaction, depending on your perspective. We do that. Enjoy your weekend and stay tuned to the VTRN Sports app and Fastlane Ed Lane, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Thanks for listening to the Fast Lane on